and welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Gameday Sports. I'm your host, as always, Louis Longoria. Today I want to break down my new top 5 in college football. We saw some shakeups last night. I want to break down my top 5 as well as my projected New Year's 6 bowls for this week. Before we get started, feel free to follow us at Gameday Garage on Twitter, comment, and subscribe down below on YouTube, Garage Gameday Sports, as well as like us on Facebook, Garage Gameday Sports. I want to get started on my top 5, and I want to start with Ohio State. Ohio State is turning into what I was fearing. I'm not really an Ohio State fan. I'd like to root for anyone besides them in the Big Ten, but they're just clicking on offense right now, and they were the beneficiary of an untimely Iowa loss. The inexplicable loss at home to Purdue exposed Iowa, basically confirmed what we already knew, that their offense wasn't very good, and they were going to stumble somewhere along the way, probably to Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game. Ohio State, their offense is clicking on all cylinders right now. I know they had the bye week this week, and their schedule is definitely going to ramp up. They host Penn State and Michigan State, and then they go to Ann Arbor at the end of the year. So they've got a backloaded schedule for sure, but I feel like that offense is clicking on all cylinders right now, and they're going to be ready to go. Ryan Day's going to have them ready to go. They're going to definitely have the strength of schedule, even with the early loss to Oregon, and there's even a chance if they stumbled along the way as a 2-loss Big Ten champ, they might still get in just because they're Ohio State and would have the strength of schedule and the resume to back that up. So I've got the Buckeyes number 5. Number 4, I've got Alabama. They put a whooping on Mississippi State this week, after that slip up at Kyle Field and College Station against A&M. I had a feeling Nick Saban was going to have his guys ready to go. They were going to be pissed off after last game, and they showed it, 49-9 blowout over Mississippi State. They're going to be the SEC West favorites. Their one loss was to A&M, but A&M already had 2 losses, so the Crimson Tide still obviously have the inside track. They can still score in bunches, and that loss may have just been the kick in the pants Bama needed to really get going. I still consider them in the upper echelon of teams along with Georgia, as a real shot to win the national championship and obviously contend in the SEC. They're going to need to win out, though. Obviously a loss to Georgia, even in the SEC championship game, that would give them a second loss and would be a non-conference champion, so that would effectively keep them out of the playoff. But I think they can run the table, and they'll give Georgia all they can handle right now. I personally would favor Georgia. Bama might be the only team that wouldn't be underdogs by double digits. It might be a 5, 6, 7-point spread. I don't know. But Alabama's certainly in the mix, so I've got them at number 4 right now. Number 3, as a Longhorn fan, I hate to admit this. It was a rough week for us Texas fans. But Oklahoma. That offense just looks really different with Caleb Williams under center. They just look more explosive. They look like a different team. Like a more motivated, more passionate team than they had when Spencer Rattler was under center. Caleb Williams can kill you with his legs. We saw big runs against Texas, and we saw a couple runs this week against TCU. And, of course, he can make huge plays with his arms. He's got Marvin Mims and all sorts of weapons at his disposal. So they're the overwhelming favorites right now. Even you've got Baylor with 1 loss, and you've got Oklahoma State undefeated. Oklahoma State's in the top 10 this week. I think they're checking in at number 8. Oklahoma would be a big favorite because Oklahoma State, although they have a defense, they don't have much of an offense outside Jalen Warren. So Oklahoma would be a big favorite against both of those teams. And there was a possibility of a rematch against Texas in the Big 12 title game. That's pretty much out the window now with Texas getting hit with another loss in the Big 12. So it's probably going to be the Bears or the Cowboys. But that high-flying offense is really clicking. You got Kennedy Brooks running it downfield on the ground. You got that very good defense, clicking. So I've got the Sooners at number 3. They're going to be in prime position for a playoff spot. If they can run the table, they'll obviously go undefeated, or even as a 1-loss Big 12 champ would probably have the resume, with wins over Oklahoma State, Baylor, and that kind of resume would definitely put the Sooners in. Number 2, I've got Cincinnati, the Bearcats. I'm really excited to see if Cincinnati can hold on to this spot because we've never seen a Group of 5 team this high before. Usually you have teams that'll start in the teens or in the 20s, work their way up, climbing the rankings, and then they either get jumped by teams at the last minute or they run out of time and don't have a chance to get into the top 4. So it's refreshing to see Cincinnati at number 2. I just hope they can withstand the pressure and not fall somewhere along the line. Desmond Ridder and Jerome Ford just making this offense click. And Jerome Ford really makes it to where Desmond Ridder doesn't have to have a huge game. He can take the pressure off of him. He doesn't have to have a huge game. But Ford balled out on the ground this week. And they notched up another blowout win this week over Central Florida. And I know Central Florida didn't have Dylan Gabriel, but they're still a formidable team. They've got a team with a pedigree. And Cincinnati was able to take it to them, punch them right in the mouth, and really never look back. And Cincinnati's going to need those type of wins. They're going to need these blowout statement wins because the committee's going to want to look for any reason to jump them. If Oklahoma has a big game or Ohio State looks good or Alabama pounds another SEC West team, they're going to look for any reason to jump Cincinnati. So Cincinnati's going to have to keep on keeping on. They're going to have to keep on just beating up teams. And I know they've got SMU on the schedule. That's going to be a tough game. SMU's still undefeated. They're going to have to go to SMU, win that game. So they're going to have to also not just keep winning, but they're going to have to rely on SMU to keep winning. That would be huge if both of them went into that game undefeated. And then, you rematch them in the AAC title game. And you want Notre Dame to keep winning, too. That's your other resume-building win. You want that to strengthen your strength of schedule. So the Bearcats are in good position right now. I just hope as an undefeated AAC champ, if they get there and if they pull that off, that should be enough to get them in. I hope it does, and I would really look forward to seeing them in the college football playoffs. I got the Bearcats number 2. And my number 1 team, of course, no surprise here, Georgia. Another dominating win. Only gave up 13 points at Kentucky. And then, of course, the shutout win over Arkansas. They're really putting it together. Stetson Bennett put himself another decent game. He's getting it done in JT Daniels' absence. You've got the run game. You've got an elite defense. You've got a quarterback that doesn't make a lot of mistakes regardless if it's Daniels or Bennett in there. You're going to want Daniels healthy for that Florida game. But besides that, Kentucky was your biggest hurdle. They beat Florida and you beat Kentucky. So the SEC East is pretty clear for Georgia. And then it would just be a matter of time, a matter of either beating Alabama or being competitive in that game. And if they lost by less than one possession, even as a one-loss non-SEC champ, that would be really interesting if they would get in over someone else with a conference championship. I personally think Georgia would. So as long as they get to the SEC title game unscathed, I think they'll be a lock for the playoff. So the Bulldogs are my number 1 team. My New Year's 6 predictions. We'll start first the Sugar Bowl. I had Alabama, Texas last week. That, of course, changed with the Longhorns losing again. Blowing another game because they obviously can only put 2 or 3 quarters together and can't string together an entire game. I've got Alabama Baylor right now in my Sugar Bowl. I think Baylor, I have a little more confidence in them than Oklahoma State, and I know Oklahoma State has a win over Baylor. I just don't like Oklahoma State's offense right now. And that's going to require Oklahoma State to lose twice, but like we saw with Iowa, an elite defense can only get you so far. That can only get you, if your defense doesn't generate multiple turnovers or doesn't have a pick 6 or you don't have any special teams touchdowns, your offense is going to be forced to score more points. And we saw Iowa fell flat on its face against Purdue. And I could easily see Oklahoma State doing that, and that could open the door for Baylor. So it may not be a popular pick and it may not happen, but I've got Alabama Baylor in the Sugar Bowl. I think it'd be a better matchup than Oklahoma State. I think Oklahoma State could get boat raced by Alabama if they played in the Sugar Bowl. Rose Bowl, your typical Big Ten Pac-12 game. I've got Michigan against Oregon. Now, Michigan still has, that Big Ten East schedule they're going to have to navigate. So I think they'll be in best position to come out of that logjam in the Big Ten. So I got the Wolverines and the Ducks in the Rose Bowl. Oregon, obviously, your Pac-12 champs. There's no real clear-cut challenger because you've got Arizona State lost and UCLA lost a couple games early. And so I really don't know who's going to come after Oregon. And I know they had the early loss to Stanford, but they're just in prime position to win a watered-down Pac-12 this year. Peach Bowl, I've still got Kentucky. I was scratching my head around this for the third best team in the SEC, and even though Kentucky They were competitive for about a quarter and a half before Georgia just overwhelmed them. But I think they're the best option you have right now. Kentucky, it'll be a toss-up between them and Ole Miss. And I know you got Matt Corral, and that Ole Miss offense would be a sexy pick there at the Peach Bowl. So that's also a possibility there. I'll just go with the Wildcats for now, but it wouldn't surprise me if Ole Miss took that spot as the third best team in the SEC. I've got them against Wake Forest, the ACC representative. And you got NC State hot on their heels. I really don't know who's going to come out of the ACC. Wake Forest was on bye this week. They're still undefeated, so I'm going to go with the Demon Deacons and the Wildcats in the Peach Bowl. Might not be, a total sexy pick, but that's what I got so far. But like I said, it wouldn't surprise me if Matt Corral and Ole Miss snuck in there and took that from Kentucky. Fiesta Bowl, Notre Dame, Penn State, Notre Dame. I think they could... If they were on the table as a one-loss Notre Dame team, I know the name and the brand, it's not going to be a popular decision, but they're going to generate New Year's Six and maybe even playoff considerations. And I know Cincinnati beat Notre Dame, so they wouldn't really have a leg to stand on if it came to them in Cincinnati. But if it came to anyone else, a 1 or 2 loss Big Ten champ or something to that effect, Notre Dame might get a nod over them. But as far as college football playoff, I don't think they'd get anywhere near the top 4. So I think the college football, the New Year's Six Bowl would be a nice landing spot for them. And I got Penn State. I've got yet another Big Ten team. I think that would be an interesting matchup, regardless who Penn State's quarterback ends up being as far as the health of Sean Clifford. And you got Notre Dame. It would be an interesting matchup. So on to my New Year's Six, the college football playoff predictions. I got Georgia, Cincinnati in the Orange Bowl. Of course, a rematch of last year's bowl game. Number 1, Georgia. I would have Cincinnati slipping to 4. I would just have a bad feeling. An undefeated or 1-loss Oklahoma team, as well as a 1-loss Ohio State team, with both of them being respective conference champions. If my predictions were to hold serve, I think they would jump. They would both jump Cincinnati in line, but Cincinnati would hold tight at number 4. So I would have Georgia, Cincinnati in the Orange Bowl. I'd have Oklahoma, Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl, which would make for very, very intriguing TV. 4 dynamic offenses as well as the group of 5, Cinderella and Cincinnati, but Cinderella turning into a powerhouse though. So it would be a very interesting bowl season to say the least, and I'm really enjoying this year's college football slate, the schedule this year. Just with all the parity, you've got the seniors, the super seniors, surprise teams, disappointments, big winners, big losers. It's just really making for a very interesting college football year. So I'm really hoping, I'm rooting for the Bearcats to get in just to see the damage they can do, and just so we can give the little guys a chance, see what they can do, and we can know for a fact whether or not they belong. So it'd be interesting. So my name is Louis Longoria. Thank you for tuning in for another episode of Garage Game Day Sports. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe to us on all social medias, Garage Game Day Sports. I will see you guys next time.